Welcome to Season 1, Episode 2 of But Then What? This was live streamed on September 12th over on our Twitch channel, Autumn Moon Studios. And unfortunately, I failed as a producer for about the first 15, 20 minutes of the stream, and there was a horrible, echoey double vocal. The dreaded double vocal that no audio engineer can ever fix. And so I am here to tell you what happened in those first few minutes. And then we'll jump right into the storytelling with our incredible cast for this episode. You had me, Sierra, aka Mystic, as your host. I am, you know me from here. I don't have to say more than that. We also have on Vin, who is known as VinvoxVA on all of his socials. Incredible TTRPG performer, voice actor, fantastic human all around. And he is with us on this episode, helping us tell a story. We also have Alyss, or Hellion Hart, as they are known on the interwebs. TTRPG performer as well, game designer, well known in the community as a performer, and you can find them at Hellion Hart. They do themselves better justice than I will in the outros as they talk about themselves. But that's who is on the episode. We're playing a story game, just like episode 1, and we generated a random plot. The random plot we generated was that the protagonist was an Empress and was sometimes stoic. The secondary character was a young boy with a penchant for peculiarity, I believe. And the plot was about a power struggle. And we got bonus points if we made it about classic fairy tales. From there, we picked a number, or Ven and Alyss picked a number between 1 and 10. Try and guess which one I was thinking of. I was thinking of 4, which meant that Alyss got to go first. And they described a beautiful moonlit beach, a young boy standing on the beach, new moon, barely bright behind them, only to see a person running with a purse that clearly was not theirs, away from an opposite direction. The boy then asked the guards chasing after this burglar what was going on, and caught a glimpse of the Iron Empress off behind them in the distance. The purse that the burglar was carrying did not match their outfit. Clearly, it wasn't theirs. The guards, out of breath, tried to say that they needed to get to stop the burglar. And so the boy pursued them. And the young boy, whose name becomes Speedy, stops the burglar in his tracks. The burglar hands over the burgled purse very easily, and while Speedy heads home for the evening looking inside, he doesn't see really anything of note. He takes it home. He tells his family what has happened. They do not believe him, as he is a known wise tale teller. And then they go to sleep, wake up the next day, needing to fulfill their normal obligations, their family being carpenters who sell in the marketplace. And as they're eating breakfast, there's a knock on the door as the guards say they need Speedy and the bag to go with them to the keep to meet the Empress. And that is where we will start the story, where the echo has stopped and we bring back in the original audio from our stream. That he can tell and entertain the Iron Empress with. Sorry, forgot the name. And once he is out the palace where the Iron Empress is staying, this place that is only open every once in a while, he starts to have second thoughts I'm going to pass it to Vin because I started early.
And what child doesn't have a little bit of mischief, especially a kid like Speedy? As they do travel to the Iron Empress, her chambers, her station, what have they prepared for her visit? He's fiddling with the bag. And as he touches the crown, he can feel it shift and quiver and make possibly noises, because that's totally not my cat misbehaving right now. And as he finds this Rubik's Cube quality with the crown, it collapses. It gets smaller, from a crown to a circlet, from a circlet to a bracelet, and from a bracelet to a ring. I think everyone is too preoccupied with the fanfare of him being paraded, and I am so sorry. He's managed to not necessarily slip the ring on his finger, but it has magically, pun intended, found its way into his pocket instead. And by the time they do reach the door, he just goes, "Oh no!" Which totally aghast, pale face, just putting on the act of a century. He might have gotten away with the crown, and just opens the bag, and this is not there. It's to the guards' fear and possibly a future employment detriment. So they're like, "Okay, you found him before. We trust you, hero of the city, Speedy. We need you to find the crown." And he gives a little 2-finger salute, turns about face, and marches right back out. And the guards end up just standing there, still, as the forest surrounding the town. And once he gets far enough, he just skips right back out into the city streets. He's thumbing the ring in his pocket, and from reverse, back from the ring to the bracelet to the circlet, and puts the circlet on his head like a dainty little tiara. And the kids start to swarm him, just asking him so many questions, asking, "Oh, did he meet the queen? Oh, meet the empress? Did he see someone get executed?" Just all sorts of off the wall, oddball questions about what happened.
Yeah. And like children are wont to do, of course, Speedy. Well, I mean, I helped the Empress. I saved her life. I'm telling you, there was an assassin after her, and none of the guards could do anything. And I managed to knock him out and put him. They put him in a big dungeon, and because the Empress was so impressed with me, she gave me a crown and said that I'm going to be the next Empress after her. Because obviously, I have the circlet now, so that makes me the next Empress. And he is just kind of swanning about at that point, a little jaunt in his step as he continues to amass this little crowd of other children who begin to whisper amongst themselves about, "Oh, if Speedy's going to be Empress, then for his friends, maybe we'll also be Empresses, or at least co-Empresses." And it's just this energy just runs amongst these children who are now trying to sort themselves out in favor amongst their slightly odd friend who has found himself in this situation. This crowd of children also begin to pull in adults who, knowing children, are a little less trusting and a little more indulgent. Oh, Speedy. He's probably picked up a trinket from the marketplace. His parents must have given him just a little bit of pocket money, and here he is playing Emperor. Though as Speedy fingers the circlet, showing off the little tricks it can do before placing the circlet once more on his head. Well, I don't know about you, but now that I am the next Empress, I'm going to build my palace in the forest. And it is going to be the most grandest palace of them all. And whoever helps me build the best palace is going to be my guard leader. Yeah, is going to be my next guard leader. And Speedy takes this little gaggle of children with him as he just marches very confidently off into the woods.
Yeah. Speedy marches confidently out into the woods, not necessarily realizing that more than half the day has gone already, and that it will be dark soon as he goes. He plays with the circlet, changing it to its various forms, and begins to wear it as a ring as he gets further and further into the dark of the trees, realizing that he is alone amongst the beasts and the burglars and the bandits known to frequent this road. He doesn't himself know much magic, but he thinks that if he were to just stay out here long enough, maybe stay a night out in the woods on his own, and build some kind of building from sticks and wood that he finds around, the kids may begin to believe him, that his story and his ability to move forward with this "I am the next Empress" idea will be fulfilled. So he settles into a little tree, the nook and cranny, crickets chirping all around him, and the sound of the distant shore, the waves not far behind, as the moon is once again shining high in the trees. And he wakes with a start, not realizing he's fallen asleep to the of an owl sitting in the tree above him. He's afraid. Speedy looks around. "I'm going to be the next Empress!" and just starts saying things, forcing himself to laugh at the shadows, the stick figures that form ghostly shapes around him in the night. "You don't scare me. That's not a real sword. That's a stick. I'm the next Empress. I have a crown. See?" Takes the ring off, changes it back to a circlet, puts it on his head. "You can call me the Iron Empress, Speedy, the Iron Empress." And as he's saying this, he begins to sort of walk and wander away from where he fell asleep. Trips as his foot gets lodged on a root he didn't see in the darkness. He sits himself up and you just hear hoo 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 hoo, almost as if the owl is following, laughing as he trips in this woods. He looks around. He doesn't know where he is. And this newfound power that he's created for himself doesn't mean anything anymore.
And as the night grows darker and the sounds of the wild grow even more threatening, he's ambling 1 foot at a time, pausing for his heartbeat to catch up. And he's still mumbling, "Well, I'm the Empress. I'm the Empress, and the Empress does not cry." And he's washing his face off in tears, and the the fluttering of those big wings from the owl just seems so much louder and louder until those wings sound like the crunch of footsteps. And he pauses, and he turns around, panicked, and doesn't see anything. And he just keeps going, still whispering of all the things that he can do as Empress, that his guardsmen would protect him, and that the tower would protect him, and their swords would protect him, and there's nothing to protect him. And as those footsteps get heavier and heavier, he can feel his head get a little bit lighter as the circlet is taken off his head by that same looming figure from the night prior. And he doesn't do anything, just takes the crown and ruffles his head and walks on into the night beyond him. Meanwhile, at the castle, there's an Empress missing a crown, and she's been very patient with the fanfare and the locals and her incompetent guards. And when it comes down to the night, the room she's been given dimly lit with candles. I enjoy tomfoolery as much as the next person, but I find myself a little disappointed. Her words cut through the room like steel, as if her tongue was made of daggers. Her guards kind of shift nervously at the warning. We did recover the crown, and the crown was not necessarily returned. There was a child who found it. Small boy, I think they called him Speedy. We sent him to recover the ring, crown. So, and like listing the names.
You sent a child to recover my crown. The only thing I truly cherish, the seat of my power in this empire, and you sent a child to recover it. The Empress's face is hard. The glint in her eye, the only show of emotion on her face as she looks down her nose at these guards who are practically trembling in their armor now. I mean, my Imperial Majesty, I mean, to be fair, he was the one that found the crown, and he was the one that saw the thief best. And to be fair, we thought that if he found him once, he could find him again, and you know, like a young boy should ask for help if he was having trouble finding it, but he seemed very sure of himself. And I mean, if you cannot find my crown, I have no use for you if I have to be the one to find it myself. So, either you three find it, or I find it. And at this point, it is going to be a race to see who gathers it first. Without another word, the Empress vacates her throne, walking stately, calmly. She has been trained all of her life to never show weakness, never show anger, aggression, and definitely not the fury she sees now, because whoever holds that crown is, in fact, the emperor, the leader of the people. That is who the throne will accept, and she has to find it in her dressing room, she changes from her stately robes, her gorgeous tailored gown, into much rougher road clothes, pants and shirts and armor, hide, and her trusted sword. Because there is not just a child in the middle of this.
As she dons her armor and her travel clothes, her sword at her hip, she wanders down the stairs of this keep she frequents maybe once or twice a year and finds her favorite horse in the stable. A gray dapple with a long mane and a long tail and bright blue eyes. She pats it on the head. You'll help me find this child, right? She saddles the horse and gets on its back. And before she leaves, the guards have slowly made their way down, following after her, almost in disbelief that she would challenge them in this way, that she herself would go out amongst the people and try to recover this crown, as if she didn't believe that they could do it. And they're like, well, he's like this tall and he looks like this, and are you gonna be, should we go with you? She just looks at them. That defeats the purpose of what we're trying to do here. Go. And they sort of like scatter like rats and run in circles and run into each other, and then part from the stables in a sort of a fanfare of disjointed dexterity as they go. She climbs astride her horse, and in their briefing of the Empress, they let her know where they found Speedy, where the market, the merchant area was, and where he lives with his family. We hear horses' hooves on the cobblestone streets as the horse ventures down, and there's a hearty 3 knocks on a heavy wooden door, the same way the guards had knocked earlier this morning. The mother and father look at each other like, oh gosh, what has he done now? And they open the door to find the Empress. Although I'm not sure they recognize her, even having seen many paintings, sketches, drawings in the leaflets that are handed out across the town. They second guess it and say, do I know you? And also, can I help you? I'm sorry, we're closed right now. Is there something that you need? And the Empress looks at them. You may call me Sophie. And yes, I need to find Speedy. The parents look at each other in disbelief. Sophie, as in the Iron Empress.
No, it's Sophie, as in Sophie. That's my name. Despite like not doing much disguise, who she is, her posture's still very straight. The armor she's wearing, very stately, not a ding, mark, cut, what have you. And for the sake of respect, Speedy's parents just play along with it. Clearly, there is some dire situation, and Speedy hasn't gotten home. Of course, they see this opportunity to first apologize, not necessarily grovel, but have deep condolences for wherever their son has done, but mentions that he goes off into the woods. He plays around with friends, that he could possibly be with one of them. There is still a layer of worry, but he does this all the time, so he does come back unscathed, hopefully. But she does stop the conversation short and returns to Edgar and travels to the forest. Meanwhile, Speedy is still quite lost, and now on top of trying to find his way home, trying to recover the circlet, the footsteps have miraculously for him slowed back into wings. So he's trying to follow the owl and possible glimpse of the ring clutched in his talons. Eventually, he does reach the edge of the forest just as the Empress and her horse touch the transition from a cobblestone to earth. And he's mixed excited to see the Empress, and then his stomach drops. Oh, it's the Empress. It just like makes all these different noises that don't necessarily come into words yet, and she just lifts a hand. I understand that you found my crown. I did, and then I did it, and there's a bird, and it's like makes these giant flapping notions that don't necessarily make sense at the moment. That's quite all right. You can still help me. Maybe this could erase your sentence by a few years. And the smile is mischievous, so she doesn't necessarily mean it, but he takes it so seriously. Yeah, it was. I was joking. It was. I can jest. Like she lifts her face to smile, like her lips aren't used to smiling anymore. And we'll find it together.
But then what?
And like these just like fat tears are still like streaming down Speedy's face. And the Empress's smile is not as reassuring as she means it to be. It is unfamiliar and a little jagged and probably a little menacing to this small child. Yes, ma'am, Empress lady. Just don't tell my mom about this. And if I'm gonna go to jail, if I really am out of jail, you gotta promise that my sister isn't going to steal my room. And while like he is just kind of babbling and sobbing, the Empress just lifts him up onto her horse and, okay, child, I see this is not going to be a civilized conversation while you calm down. So can you at least point me in the direction that man bird that stole my crown went? And he just kind of waves like a little wobbling finger off back into the forest, and the Empress begins to set off in that general direction. Without the beating of the owl's wings, this forest is quiet. It is still in the way that nature should not be still. And the only sound, branches and leaves breaking underneath hooves. So, boy, tell me what did happen to my crown. I mean, I found it last night, and he disappeared, and Sweetie kind of just like looks down at his hands. He disappeared, and I didn't realize that the crown wasn't in the bag until this morning because I was walking with the guards, and I realized it wasn't there. And then they told me, Speedy, you have to go find it. If you don't find it, you're gonna go to jail for a very long time. So you're responsible for it because it was supposed to be with you. And I said, yes, sir. And I walked into the forest, and I found the burglar guy, and he waved the crown in front of me and ran off.
I see, she says as Edgar slows his pace to a low trot. Have you seen this owl before in town? Or is this a new experience? You said you're in the woods quite often. I think that I've seen owls before. There's one that follows me around. No one believes me because I tell lots of stories. He like catches the fact that he's like admitting finally to someone that he likes to weave these eccentric, riddled with lies stories for himself. Are you lying when you tell these stories, Speedy? Because empresses don't lie. At least not when it matters. Speedy goes, yeah, I mean, I guess I do that sometimes. Hey, look! At that moment, there's like a whoosh of a giant owl that flies in front of Edgar and the Iron Empress and Speedy as they head back toward the beach. They watch as it transforms from the form of a giant bird to the form of a man, silhouetted once again by the moon, the waves crashing in front of them. And Sophie says, why don't you stay here, okay? Take care of Edgar. As she dismounts and begins to walk toward this owling man in the distance. Speedy looks around, pats Edgar, who stomps his hoof and like shakes his body, clearly agitated to be left behind. Should we follow her? And the horse kind of like gets a little glint in its eyes. It looks back at the small boy on its back and starts to slowly move forward, almost as if the horse is aware of the fact that its shoes will make noise on this road. It steps very slowly and consciously as it continues down the path. They begin to hear the conversation between the Empress and the burglar on the beach. I told you to be discreet, she says. Hard to be discreet when there's a woman and a child trying to chase after me, the man says in a very nasally voice. Is it done? She says.
But then what? I have to hold this plot now.
I will reset the time so you have all
Thank
of it.
you.
Yeah.
It was done to the best of my ability. What's that? And he points his head over to Speedy, who is trotting up with Edgar, who seems to get a little more trepidatious as they approach. Sophie does a little defiant sniff. Don't worry about him, he's just a child. You should be off. Where? And he just kind of snorts. And then Speedy comes up. You! And he just goes, you! And they pointing back at each other, just like equally matched in challenge. Enough. Speedy, you've done very well. And I thank you for your heroics. You should go home now. Everything will be fine. And perhaps you can take Edgar back to the stables for me. He's just really big, and I don't trust myself with and he's trying to piece what's going on, and the burglar's just kind of like getting more impatient, not necessarily stomping, but you can tell by the energy just is coming off in disgusting ways that he wants this little thing gone. And what she does do is just pluck the bracelet off of him and does the same reconfiguring from the circlet to the crown again and just places it atop her head. See everything? It's fine. In fact, I'll take Edgar. And Speedy, still a little uncomfortable, just kind of shies away, just takes steps backwards until he eventually turns and goes home, quote unquote. What he does do is wait a ways away, still watching as the two have their conversation. This was a little bit tumultuous, as they would say. To think that the crown was in the hands of a child. Well, if you had let me do as I had wanted, this wouldn't have been a problem, he says through gritted teeth. And the two...
Oh dear. From behind a tree, Speedy watches the two stand off. Well, this is all, one of your games again, Your Majesty. See how long I can keep the crown you stole from me in the first place all those many years ago, and see how long it takes for you to track me down. I mean, it's a fun game, isn't it? After all, if you continue to try to take back this empire, I'm going to be there to stop you, to take back what is mine, and call it a game. I mean, I'm certainly enjoying myself at these times. Speedy doesn't really know what to make of this conversation. It seems that while there is some animosity between these two in the way that adults can fight without raising their voices, it's almost like they're telling their own stories. And I mean, who's gonna believe him if he tells this one? This make for a really good story. And after all, like, mom and dad, like, I'm already gone so long, and who knows where they think I'm at. So maybe this can be even better. And he continues just hiding until he feels a hand upon his shoulder, a figure melting out of shadow. Oh, a little boy in the woods. The little Empress you're calling yourself, right? Well, little Empress, let's add another player to this game. And with a shout, the two on the beach watch as Speedy is pulled deep into these shadows, forcing themselves to stop their arguing.
Look what you made me do, Sophie says to this burglar man. I didn't do anything. You brought the kid here. He just says through his teeth. Take it. Changes the circlet back to a badge of honor. She seems to be able to shift it into different forms. Attaches it to the cloak of this man, who now seems to be dressed in like a tailored black suit and tails. You knew we were hiding it from her the whole time anyway. We failed. Guess we have to save this boy from the Witch of the Woods now. flash to Speedy, who doesn't remember how he got where he is, but looks around to find his bum, his feet, his hands in a pile of mud. As he's in some sort of corral, there are pigs rooting around him, and a trough full of slop on the other side. What in the hell? Oh, I'm not supposed to say that word. One of the pigs said, "First time?" And Speedy's like, "Did you just talk to me? You're a pig. Pigs don't talk. Am I dreaming?" Pinches himself really hard. It hurts. What is going on? Is it... You see like this wispy shadow floating in the distance away from the place where Speedy is kept out into the trees. Seems to be stringing some sort of magic Speedy's very unfamiliar with, from one tree to another in the path that leads to her home. And then all of a sudden, the smoke pushes up towards Speedy just across the wooden branches that make up sort of the pen that these hogs are kept in. "Eat this." Flicks him a little square treat. It looks like a handmade pastry. It smells divine of cinnamon and cardamom and butter. Speedy looks at this shadowy woman who doesn't seem to ever take a full corporeal form.
But then what?
Sophie and the burglar take off towards the woods. Even though he's dressed in these stately clothes, he does a defiant flip of the tailcoat of the suit and turns back into a bird. This time much more sleek, either a raven or crow, some corvid, and flies ahead as Sophie races on Edgar. Despite this, as they're going through the town, they are still yelling back and forth, bickering, as siblings do, throughout the streets. The parents ask about Speedy, and that does quiet them for a second, but they still press onward deep into the woods. Meanwhile, Speedy is really contemplating this tree, and the witch just seems to be a little bit sweeter too in comparison, because who else offers you nice things in the middle of a pig pen? Who will worry about that? And with the judgment of a child, because, 14, he eats it. And his mouth kind of tingles what he assumes may be the spices, but as it gets worse, he thinks maybe it's an allergy, as his mouth and jaw reconfigures with that of a swine. And instead of a startled scream, it is that nasally screech that pigs give. And while he thrashes and panics, the witch is delighted in her trickery, and another pig just shakes his head in sadness. Meanwhile, the siblings do make it to the witch's lair. What the word I'm thinking of? Cottage. There we go. Sophie has her sword brandished. Edgar is in some bushes enjoying some berries because this isn't his fight. And the burglar stomps down as a full-bodied person again. The witch is still quite delighted as she steps gingerly out, arms crossed, and gives a little cackle. We weren't expecting more players in this game, so we politely ask for his retrieval. Oh, you're a little too late, she sniggers. And Sophie steps forward with the sword brandished and ready to fight. And that's when I say, but
Then what?
But then what?
As Sophie steps forward, sword ready to take down this witch. I mean, young Empress, if you are going to slay me, you're never going to find the boy. The sword begins to lower. I mean, after all, he is just but an innocent in the crossfire, isn't he? And you've lost so many in your little games. Maybe what's one more, but at the same time, an innocent's life. Sophie just rolls her eyes. Look, what is it that you want? The crown? The empire? No. If I want power, I can have it. I have accumulated much in my time. What I want is your brother's jacket. I request his changing forms. That's easy enough, isn't it? You don't have to give up your crowns or your life, and you get to walk away with the young boy. Sophie looks back at her brother, who clutches this suit tuxedo jacket just a little closer to his chest. She knows what it means to him, what it meant to them many, many years ago. If he loses it, he loses not only his ability to shift forms, but he will be stuck. He will be one of the 7 ravens forevermore again that their stepmother had turned him into long ago. I mean, after all, he was cursed into one form. He should live his life in it. And I would like the power it holds. If you're interested in games so much, witch, the brother steps forward. Let's play a new one.
And as the brother steps
Then
forward
what?
and says, let's play a new one, you watch as a stampede of pink-bellied pigs runs toward the now corporeal form of the witch, knocking her off of her feet and onto the ground as Speedy yells, "Charge!" leading them along the way in protection of his Iron Empress. Help me! Change me back! He yells as they continue to sort of step and stomp on this shadowy form of this forest witch. And Sophie and her brother look at each other. What the? What? The kid is a hog? Okay. And Sophie runs into the house. It seems that as the hogs step on the shadowy form of this witch, it's harder and harder for her to take a shape of a body, to pull herself back together. In the magic she has imbued herself with is constantly pulling her apart into this shade form. The brother, quick on his feet, sees a jug that was used for some kind of pickling in the past and begins to quickly scoop the witch up into the jug as the hogs continue to stomp on them, catching all the pieces up as he goes in the sand and the dirt, and then quickly putting the top onto this jug. The sister comes back with a handful of pastries. Was it one of these? And Speedy just says, yeah, and it tasted weird, sparkly. Don't eat that one. He nudges it off with the plate with his nose. That one does this. Do you guys know what the other ones do? And he looks back at the rest of the pigs, who all start talking now. The witch, you could see the shadowy form of a face press against the glass of this pickling jar. She cries out in an echoey distance, no, what are you doing? I want your shade. I want your coat. Give me your coat. Give me your coat. And the brother just stands there with this corked glass jar. You need to learn some manners. As Sophie begins to like sniff and put down all of these pastries. But there's one last puzzle. Which one of these is correct? How do they turn Speedy back? Sophie is not very familiar with magic, let alone this type of baking witchcraft. Do they test them all and risk the boy's life? This boy who's now saved her.
And Speedy, ever so patient, not at all, starts running around as his little pig self, and eventually the brother scoops him up and kind of inches his little split hooves into the jacket so they can share it, and he springs back up temporarily as a person. And then he shifts the jacket into a cloak, so they're at least human together, as long as the cloak would allow.
Maybe we should ignore those. Maybe we'll all turn to pig. We don't all need to be pigs.
And he's just kind of like waddling forward with the brother kind of hunched in tow and grumbling about it. And instead of looking at what was already baked, he reaches for a grimoire / cookbook, because why not? And it's just a rumming through the pages for another transformation, base, spell, bread, pastry, what have you.
I help my mom cook all the time because my sisters can't. They can boil, they can burn water.
And just telling everybody's problems in the house as he starts baking. Just looking through the ingredients and giving things either absolute intuition or avoiding things that gave him that like really nasty a tingle in his mouth. Meanwhile, the witch is just howling mad and shaking in the jar, but not having any progress. And at this point, while she watches her brother and Speedy kind of work in tandem, 4 arms, 1 body, around the kitchen, and just sits there with her boot on top of the jar so it stops moving. Eventually, even some of the pigs start helping them with the baking. Hopefully, they'll be able to transform too, or some are just actual pigs who learn how to talk through this magic compopulation. But now what's left is to let the dough rest, slide in the oven with the water bath, and they wait. The stillness of the moment and like the random clanking, grumbling of the witch, because they may be successful with how angry she's gotten. And they just collapse with a very heavy sigh. This has really been worth it. Are you having fun? Oh, I'm having loads. Completely sarcastic with this kid kind of like dancing with excitement as the robes rise.
But then what?
Then what? The two or siblings are forced together in this wait. Probably a lot more time than they've spent together in the last century or so. And it makes for a really awkward conversation as they watch the loaves gently rise in the oven. Speedy talking the entire time. Yeah, like after she turned me into a witch, like at a pig that the witch, she made me run around and do tricks and made me jump through a burning hoop. I don't know why anyone would want to be a pig. It's not fun and it's just a lot of mud and slop does not taste good. And like at this point, the two adults have learned that what Speedy has to say is generally a figment of his own mind, especially as the witch in her mist form rocking against the jar. You little brat. No, I didn't do any of that. I just stuck you in a pin waiting for these two to come, and I will have the wings at last to escape this forest. As soon as I get out of here and take that cloak from you. Oh, I think not. And Sophie just kind of tilts the jar a little sideways just to knock the witch off kilter. And brother, why do we do this after so many centuries? Is it the throne you're after? It's yours now, oh great Iron Emperor. Though I'm not convinced you could lead a horse to water in the middle of a lake. You know it's more than that, sister. It is what we are left to do. Fight over a throne that neither of us care to have. Power, corrupting power, and you just do a better job at it. And what am I left to do as one pig shouts, "They're done!"
The pigs use their hooves to push the pan out, knocking the loaves all over the floor as they gobble them up heartily. Some of them transform into human forms of varying sizes and shapes and colors. Others stay pigs because they were always pigs. The magic of these loaves was simply to reverse a magic, not to change the inherent shape of something. And as Speedy becomes himself again, he looks up. I'll be the Empress. I already told everyone I was the Empress. I'll be it. I'll be the Empress. And the brother looks at Speedy. You mean the Emperor? Emperor? Well, you could be an Empress, I guess, if you want. I want to be an Empress. That's me. Speedy, the great bread emperor. He raises a hand to the sky. The siblings look at each other. Shrug. Not until you get old enough, all right, kid? But sure. You come to any time. It's going to be a lot of work, a lot of education, a lot of travel. Parents have to say okay. Are you serious? You're gonna let me be the emperor? A 14-year-old boy? You must really not like it. Never mind. I don't want it. I don't want to be an emperor anymore. You can wear your crown. They both kind of deflate, the siblings in their chair, like, oh, even if this was a reckless and silly decision, it was gonna get us out of this place. Speedy sees this, and being fast on his feet, he says, what if you didn't have to be the emperor anymore? What if you were both in charge and also were very supported by other people who were very smart and good at their jobs? The siblings look at each other. You're talking about changing the entire structure of our empire. It's not as simple as you say, Speedy. I'm just saying, like, it's not impossible. Like, if you're really unhappy and you never die, like, that's a long time to do something that you don't really want to do, you know? Like, maybe you change. He smiles really big at them. And the witch shakes the glass.
But then what?
Maybe we can change. Just echoes the words a bit. And as she does so, she takes the jar and puts it on the highest shelf and just gives the witch a very gracious bow and corrals the pigs. What were pigs? Leading a very interesting march back into the village. Petey's still jabbering on about, Speedy is still jabbering on about different ways they could split the empire. He can't find the word democracy yet. He hasn't gotten there in his social studies. But the siblings are regarding him as best they could. The father's still kind of muttering about his coat being dirty and smelling a little bit like Piglet, just like snorts down at Speedy, who takes a mild offense to that, given his recent transformation. Eventually, they part, only for Speedy to go home and tell his parents about everything that happened, being lost in the woods, being found by the Owl Man. The Owl Man ended up being the Empress's sibling, and they were mean to each other, but then they were nice to each other, and how they both don't like being Empress. And this is just being regarded as one of his fast little tales. Because they ask, where is the Empress now? And the burglar brother, and when he points outside, they're not there. They've already returned to the keep, and the brother is back to a bird. Not necessarily the owl that he steals as, but just a dove, something small, something inconspicuous, something that the Empress might have as a pet, just to get past the guards. Together, they are sitting in her room, regarding the badge back to a bracelet, which is probably the more favorite form between them. Well, he wasn't wrong, but I don't know how we can make that right. She just murmurs. We could break it. Excuse me. We were saying impossible things, and I was just suggesting something impossible as he has his chance to toy with it. It could be Empress, Emperor, what have you. And then what, we curse a child with immortality? That's very gracious of you, Your Majesty. You should definitely be in charge of things. It just like kind of spins it. And the two just have... But there one!
We're so close
The
to the end.
two just continue their moment. I mean, there are worse things than naming an heir for when we do decide to finally give up this cursed life of ours. After all, we rushed into this foolhardy, each taking half a deal. Maybe it's not the worst thing to dismantle it all. After all, metal, even magic metal, can be broken. And who knows, maybe a 14-year-old can be the best bred Empress this empire has ever seen. Oh, sister. I don't know what decision we need to make with this. Giving away the throne, destroying the throne, letting the people do what they want. It means the end of you and me with time, and maybe that's the choice we make. Though I'm not really sure we should trust an empire to a child that will also continue to lie to everyone, considering I did take the circlet as the crown was from him in the forest while he was marching around proclaiming he was the Iron Empress. I mean, we were children once, brother. Maybe we make this into a grand game. Hide the crown and see who finds it first. Tell them that whoever can wield it will be the Grand Empress, the Emperor, that whatever they want to make the crown into, this empire into. Maybe we put it on the shelf next to the witch. Just let it disappear, just like many empires have into the past. And they continue talking this way into the night, not really making a decision. Not really knowing what their next move should be as dawn breaks over the horizon once more and the guards come tripping over themselves to see the sight.
But then what?
The guards approach the room where the Empress normally takes tea, opening the door to find nothing but a horseshoe necklace on one chair and a large owl feather on the other, and a note that simply says, "Let the games begin." And that is where we find an end to our But Then What story for this episode. That was so fun. Y'all are
Yeah.
great.
Oh, that was so much fun.
Improv.
Yeah.
Yay.
We tried to toss every fairy tale I know out. Hoping something
But you
sticks.
did it, and it worked.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, cool. Thank you everyone for tuning in. We've come to the end of episode 2 of season 1 of But Then What? We have another episode coming up in October with a horror specific stream featuring some friends, including SS Ambrose, Wes, and another super special guest as we
Wait, there is more than one Wes in the tabletop space.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Carrion.
Yeah, you mean my favorite people in the world? You
We
mean
all get to tune in and watch.
oh my goodness,
All get to tune in
award-winning
Award-winning, yeah.
Ambrose and Carrion Comfort Studios, Wes Frank's graphic designer. Those are my besties. That's why I'm so excited.
And one more super special guest that I'm not going to spoil yet for a horror-themed October episode. Second Tuesday of the month will be here. And yeah, this was fantastic. I've been your host, Mystic. Sometimes people call me Sierra. You can catch me here at Autumn Moon Studio, all over the socials as Mystic Musing in some form of that. Yeah, I have a book coming out next Tuesday. If you're into short stories, you can find that wherever you buy your books. It's called We May Not All Be Heroes, and it's a collection of 10 short stories.
Super exciting. Everyone should go buy it.
Yeah, I'll pass it to Vin.
Oh my gosh, hi again. Again, I'm Vin at VinVoxVA on Twitter. That's where most of my shenanigans are. But if you want to see me more professional, check out my website, vinvox.com, where you find my demo reels, my resume, home studio information, and contact me if you want to pay me, give me work. I love working. And I'm slided to Alyss.
Hi guys, I'm Alyss. You can find me everywhere online at Alyss Hart or Hellion Hart. My card is alysshart.carrd.co. That has everything I've been in, the socials where you can find everything I will be in, the games I make, and the production company I'm in called Feathered Freaks Productions. If you'd like to see more of me, the next stream I am on will be this Friday. I'll be playing Ready Set Bake in the first episode of Quell's Kitchen over on Exquisite Corpse Presents. From there, you'll find me playing Capers Cyberpunk over on Lost Caravan and Back to Bluebeard's Bride over on Girls Run These Worlds on Monday. The production company I am with, Feathered Freaks Productions, we put on a Monster of the Week actual play podcast called Welcome to Reddington. I do audio editing. I am, again, a producer over there, and I'm one of the players, one of 15. So our last episode just came out this Friday, so you'll see us again in about 2 weeks. Everything else I am in, which is many, many, many things, you will see on my social media. Follow me on Twitter if you like the burning dumpster fires. If not, I am over on Blue Sky as well.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. If you like this episode, tell your friends. The VOD will be up soon, and the podcast version will be live at Autumn Studios, wherever you listen to your podcasts. I love you. I appreciate you all. Thank you so much. Stay safe. Have a good evening.
Bye. Thanks for joining us.